There's an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do a video about the Democratic National Convention. I mean, there's so much stuff that surrounds these conventions. It's embarrassing to watch. It's embarrassing to watch the people in the crowd crying. It's really just cringe on steroids is what it is. But after seeing a couple of the clips from the Democratic National Convention, I really feel like it sums up the state of this inverted reality that we're living in. I saw trending on Twitter was the term, "they are out of their minds." And of course, when I looked up what they were referencing when it comes to "they are out of their minds," it has to do with abortion. And it shows you how inverted of a reality we're living in, where the key thing for people who identify or vote as Democrats, the key thing that they care about is child sacrifice. Does that not sum up the state of the world that we're living in? It is so draining. It is so depressing to even just look at this and realize that people out there, their perception is so warped and they become so selfish in a sense that what they're thinking about is a me mentality, right? But they don't realize how all these things affect other people's lives, including children. We're talking about living beings, children alive in the womb. And to them, it's about their own personal preference of sacrificing these children. And again, it shows you how this all really does tie into the occult and these witches in politics and these Satanists in politics and the minds of so many people out there through constant repetition and mind control of convincing them that children in the womb are not alive. Convincing them that a child who is living and breathing, who is living through his mother inside of the womb, how convince them that these children are not alive, and that if a woman gets pregnant, they should have the right to sacrifice these children. Of course, like I've time years, and as you all know, the keyism, the one runs on is child sacrifice. This goes back to the Old Testament and sacrifice to Baal. So this was trending, and then at the same time, I looked at that and I said to myself, do I even do a video on it? And I almost felt like I wanted to just vent about it, just talk about it, because it bothers me so much seeing this stuff and seeing the perception that people have where they're going, oh yeah, it's about women's right to choose, instead of just going, yeah, why are they so obsessed with this? Why are we just constantly talking about it? Why do I care so much about this? These people don't even realize that they're not even processing thoughts on their own anymore. And when I saw this quote from Kamala Harris, I saw this as well, and that's why I wanted to cover it. At the same time that they're talking about how people are out of their minds who are against child sacrifice, they're also giving free abortions at the Democratic National Convention. You know how insane that is? Planned Parenthood, Bill Gates and company, offers free abortions and vasectomies outside of the Democratic National Convention. I mean, if this doesn't sum up the state of our society in 2024, I don't know what will. But listen to this crowd and how they respond in talking about child sacrifice and how important of an issue it is for them to sacrifice a child, because they think in their warped perception of reality that this has something to do with their rights, with their own freedoms. And it's insane how twisted they've made everything out there, because these are the same people that are taking away others' right to just something as simple as free speech. And they want to have the right to murder a baby, of course. And this is the main issue for these psychopaths.
This is what's happening in our country because of Donald Trump. And understand, he is not done. As a part of his agenda, he and his allies would limit access to birth control, ban medication abortion, and enact a nationwide abortion ban with or without Congress. And get this, he plans to create a national anti-abortion coordinator and force states to report on women's miscarriages and abortions.
What's wrong with that?
Simply put, they are out of their minds. And one must ask...
You don't even look like you have a soul anymore, lady.
One must ask, why exactly is it that they don't trust women? Well, we trust women. We trust women. And when Congress passes a bill to
Brainwash. Brainwash.
as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law.
And again, this isn't a left-right thing, but obviously conservatives care about a child's right to live. They look at abortion as murder. And we know that the perception of this has changed throughout the years because of the media. 20, 30 years ago, Democrats and Republicans would have been on the same side for the most part with this issue. I mean, sure, there'd be Democrats who say, well, what if the person's raped, or what if it's incest? Something along those lines, they might make a debate. Now it's just like free reign to kill babies, and they want free reign to kill babies and do this stuff.
She
And of course, we
sounded
know
like.
they've mixed in so much propaganda and so much fear where they tell people, hey, if you want to have an abortion, you can't do it in a conservative state, or you can't cross these lines. And we'll see where this all heads after the fake outcome of this election. But it's just a scary, warped sense of what's happening in the world, right? When we look at how passionate people are about this issue, it's insanity. It's utter insanity. And it really breaks my heart. It makes me just, I start looking at stuff and I say, is there anything else that any of us can really do at this point to help wake people up? I mean, I get it that we're not going to stop, biblical prophecy from occurring. And I'm not trying to stop it from occurring by having creating this type of content. I'm trying to wake people up, to all the stuff that's really going on so they can see it for themselves and realize that this is spiritual, that this is about God and the devil, as I've mentioned many, many times. So I look at it and I just say to myself, the mind controls work so well that we've gotten to a point, and some of you might be young, but like I said, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, this wasn't like a hot topic issue. People weren't fighting blue versus red over murdering babies, and now it's become the main talking point. Like literally, people are going to go cast their vote for human sacrifice based on just this idea. And it shows you how selfish people are, because they think, well, wait a minute, what if I was to get pregnant? What if I was to get pregnant? Well, don't have sex. Oh, well, what if I was to get raped and get pregnant? They think of every single possibility of them getting pregnant, and then thinking to themselves, well, if that does happen, that's not fair, that I can't end the term and end the baby, even though they could give birth to the baby and give that baby up for adoption. That is an option. It is, actually, believe it or not. You never hear that option mentioned, especially at a time where nobody is able to have babies anymore because of all the chemicals that are being dumped on us every day. How many men, you hear stories about men and women? I mean, I know people who have tried to have kids who aren't able to have kids, and then you hear about the IVF stuff that they try to bait people into, which, again, I've heard people's notions on that, too, where they talk about, well, IVF, they do, the sperm and the egg, however this whole thing works, but the sperm and the egg comes together when they, try to create this on their own in a petri dish or whatever in a laboratory, that they do terminate the sperm and the egg. So that even could be looked at as a form of sacrifice as well. But a lot of people are, forced into that stuff without realizing why people aren't able to have kids anymore. It used to be in the 70s, 60s, people would have 4 or 5 kids. It'd be almost like every time that they, did their act in the bedroom, a husband and a wife, they were getting pregnant. Now nobody seems to be able to do it. They're trying so hard to do it. You'd think that maybe some of these people would say, hey, I could still go through the pregnancy, have, give it up for adoption, have the baby can have a good life. They don't ever want to mention that because it's too much work to go through the whole pregnancy, of course. And then they pretend like a lot of these people can't afford to go through the pregnancy, right? Even though, there's lots of things that the government should be doing, right, with our tax money to help women get through their terms, right? I mean, I don't think anybody out there would argue with the way they waste and piss away our tax money if they gave more money to pregnant women and helping them get through the pregnancy safely and the child get through it safely. I mean, I'd be all fine. That works fine for me with my tax. I mean, it's better that than going and flushing it down a toilet as they launder it through Ukraine or whatever else we constantly hear that they're doing with our tax money, which, again, we all know that they've been building underground cities with our tax money, underground highways with our tax money. So just back to the story, the reason I'm covering it, when you watch the clip, and you see people in the crowd, and you just, how do you not look at that and say, wow, this hypnosis is scary? I mean, this is legitimate hypnosis. You see these women, they don't even, in the crowd at the Democratic National Convention, they're insane at both, don't get me wrong. the conservatives are pretty insane. Their worship of Trump, but you look at these people, they got blue hair. You could just look at them and their politics, and they're literally there. And none of these women probably would ever even get pregnant. Some of these women, like you look at them and you're like, well, they probably would never want to have kids in the first place. But they're not even there because like they're going through a personal issue where they're like, I'm pregnant and they're not letting me get it. They're just thinking about themselves. They're like, well, they're taking away a woman's right, but they don't even realize how many rights that the government as a whole is taking away from all of us, right? We can look at the most basic ones that they've taken away, right? I mean, I could sit here and cry day and night about free speech, right? But none of these people who would argue about freedoms and human rights would defend my right to free speech because they don't agree with it. So then they say, well, that's misinformation, that's disinformation, because they're completely programmed. And now they're completely programmed into, like I've warned about for years, they're completely programmed into wanting and being okay with human sacrifice, because that's all that this is. That's all that it is. And that's what politics has turned into. It's incredible. It's turned into even the fact that we're allowing the government to dictate anything, right, over our lives. But now we're talking about murder. We're talking about the government legalizing murder, which, it's been legal for a while. People have been able to get abortions, but this is a human right to them. This is a topic that matters more than anything, right? And women have fallen for this thing hook, line, and sinker. And it's scary when you watch how people respond to these conventions. Like if you watch how they talk online about it, you can see how deep the hypnosis runs. And whatever ends up happening on November 5th, whatever their fake outcome is, you know that this thing is about to boil over. It's going to boil over. And I still believe that they're going to do this herding mechanism with conservative Democratic states. Of course, I could be wrong about that. I don't have any inside information. Obviously, on my channel over the years, all I've told you is things that I see. And that doesn't mean that every single time that what I see is correct. I'm not a prophet. I'm just a guy who's analyzing this stuff just like all of you are. So I don't know what will end up happening, but I do know this. Whatever it is pre-planned. I think we could all guarantee that. And whatever it is, it's going to be mass chaos that comes out of it because both sides are at their boiling point, right? You can see all these unhinged liberals who want to murder babies, who are going to be upset that they can't murder babies. On the other side, you can see nobody believing, because nobody in a million years, this whole thing that's doing with the Democrats is so in our faces, as far as it not even being legal. Like, it's not even legal that she's the person running, because the people didn't have any vote. And if Kamala Harris should have the right to run, there was supposed to be a primary, you vote for Kamala. It's incredible. Right, so it's illegally being done, and nobody out there is even questioning that for the most part. They're just selecting someone and putting them in place, which is what they do with the Republican side as well. But they're not even pretending, right? They usually would have to pretend and say, well, Kamala Harris is going to run, and are you going to vote for her in the primary to be the Democratic? No, they just throw them in there. Everybody just goes, I hate Trump, so they don't even care. They don't even care. This entire thing is an illegal operation, and lots of people are going to opt in come November 5th into the illegal operation. But what obviously bothers me the most, and what's scariest to see, is that they are out of their minds as trending. And you say to yourself, oh, is it I naturally see that, and the first thing I think of, well, the Democrats are out. These people are out of their minds. They're talking about killing babies, and of course it's inverted. It's the other way. You're out of your mind if you don't think a woman should have the right to kill a baby because they've had sex and gotten pregnant and not waited till marriage or not taken the proper, repercussions to not get pregnant. No, you're out of your mind if you think killing a baby is wrong. Pretty scary time to be alive. It's absolutely frightening. Breaks my heart. And then, of course, at the same time, don't forget, like I said, Planned Parenthood was just outside giving free abortions outside of the Democratic National Convention. Can you believe that? Do you know how insane that is? They're outside of a Democratic National Convention with a freaking a clinic on wheels where they're saying, "Come here, kill a baby. Come here, get a vasectomy. We definitely don't want to overpopulate, right?" And these people out there are so warped that they literally are under such hypnosis they don't even realize how sick and twisted these people are. And it goes for both parties. I'm not sitting here defending the conservative party, but obviously anybody who wants to sacrifice a child, I am more than just against. I am bothered and affected by anybody that even thinks that way. But I thank everybody for being here. Sorry, I just needed to do a rant about it. I'm sure a lot of you probably didn't see it. You probably had enough of this stuff, but I figured it was worth discussing, especially after the video I did, talking about McMartin again and how the alt-right media is downplaying it. It really bothers me. I probably shouldn't have went down the rabbit hole again, because McMartin, like I had said in my previous video, is really something that woke me up. And there's times like with Pizzagate and things like that, when you get really into it, like you got to step away from it, because when you just start realizing like how non-human these people are and the stuff they do with kids, like you just start looking around and just losing, you lose motivation to even like do stuff. It's so depressing because you think like, how are people made like this? How can people do this to children? How can people do these acts with kids? And we're not just talking about sexual, we're talking about sacrifice. So when I, doing McMartin and covering it again, it just opens up a can of worms in my, absolutely just, I don't want to get any more emotional about it, but it's just absolutely insane that we're living through this and we're allowing these people to brainwash people. You know what's next. This is all stuff that they're just normalizing. These witches and these Satanists somehow through psychological operations have convinced these people that killing a baby is a good thing. And if you don't agree, you're out of your mind. Unbelievable, folks. I thank you for being here. I appreciate everybody so much. God bless all of you as always and your families.